Okay, hello and welcome back to the SKATEROOM Podcast, where we chat art and skateboarding in the name of social change.
And we're here from the Brussels HQ and very happy to welcome Tim, Programs Directors of CGF, a project we've been working with for a couple of years now and that we're very happy to continue supporting throughout the year.
Yeah, well,
Thanks.
Tim.
Happy to be here. Thanks
Welcome, man. Yeah. This is an introduction for all our audience to know what you do. How would you describe Concrete Jungle Foundation in a sentence?
In one,
Two sentences. A really long one.
In
really
one long sentence.
6-page dossier. Give it to us. Come on.
Concrete Jungle Foundation is a non-profit organization that builds skate parks and runs youth programming in communities in developing countries around the world.
Nice. Okay, cool. And how did you become a skater? What led you to this point where you were with Concrete Jungle Foundation? What's your background?
How I became a skater, I think it just started with me seeing somebody skateboarding down the street. I think it's quite a classic story, and I just was very intrigued by it. And I went to the skate park one day, tried to skate on somebody's board, and that was it. Like, I was hooked, and I didn't really do anything else after that.
And where did you grow up?
In the Netherlands, in Vianen. It's a small city near Utrecht.
Okay, cool. That's where my dad lives.
Really?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. And what how did skateboarding shift your perspective? You know, were you a sporty person generally, or was skateboarding kind of the first thing that brought you into that kind of lifestyle? Where did it fit in?
I was always a very sporty child. Like, I was always doing a lot of different sports, and I think I was like switching every year between different things. But I think in skateboarding, I really found something. I think maybe for a few different reasons that really hooked me. Like, it was something that didn't have like a specific trajectory of like a progression. Like, it was so open, and there were so many different things to discover with it, which like kept my interest, I guess, for a long time. And I think also a big part of it was the community around it, right? Like, the people that I met through skateboarding and the friends, and I started like going a lot more outside of my small town through skateboarding, meeting a lot of people from different places. Because there were a lot of things that, skateboarding opened up for me, I think. Yeah.
And what were you studying? What sort of career did you have in mind for yourself before you ended up doing what you were doing? Was there a trajectory you were on?
A little bit, but not. So I studied pedagogical sciences, and my master's was childhood education and socialization.
Okay.
And I always knew, for some reason, even when I was still a little bit of a child myself, that I was very interested in youth development and like seeing younger kids than me going through these sort of things that I had been going through. And that was quite clear for me that is something that I really was interested in, and I wanted to study that. And then I think throughout my studies, I wasn't quite sure like what am I going to do with this. But then I was skateboarding a lot at the time, and then in my master's, I needed to do make an assignment on something that you were passionate about, and I was already going a little bit more into the field of sports and youth development. So, well, in my case, it just made sense to sort of link skateboarding with youth development. So I wrote a paper on how skateboarding could help youth in their personal development in the private situations. And I think that was the first time really in my studies that I was really, really like passionate and stoked about something. And I think like with that, like I sort of developed a theoretical sort of framework with it. And when I was done studying, it was sort of left with that. Like, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I started traveling around a little bit. Then I went back to the Netherlands. I started working, and I still had this thing in the back of my head of like, I remember the passion that I had for it. And eventually I decided like, I want to do something with it. I want to see if I can put the ideas that I had back then to practice. So I started to look for volunteer opportunities with different organizations. Started volunteering with different organizations that were out there doing some things, and then that sort of led into Concrete Jungle Foundation.
Okay, but like, so which organizations were you volunteering for, and how did Concrete Jungle actually begin? Like, where was it something already existing, or are you a founding member? What's the background there?
So I went to Palestine. First, I volunteered for 6 months with Skate Aid at an orphanage in Bethlehem.
Okay.
And it was a quite challenging experience, but also I think very good to sort of see like what kind of challenges come with that kind of work. And after that, I went to still in Palestine to Skatepel, a little bit more up north for a month. And during my last few weeks in when I was at Skate 8, I really wanted to fix a little bit of the skate park. Like the ramps were deteriorating a little bit, but I had no like construction skills, so I wanted to get in touch with the person that built it to see if I could get some tips from him. And that person was Harry Gerard, one of the founders of Concrete Jungle Foundation. And him and Clement, at that moment that I was in Palestine, the both of them were setting up Concrete Jungle Foundation. They were setting up the first project, which was a little skate park inside of a school in a slum in Peru, in a city called Trujillo. And at that point in time, they had plans to build this park, and we actually got in touch about like, hey, we are looking for somebody to run programming when the park is there, because it's inside of school. We discussed with the school that it's going to be part of the school curriculum, but we don't really have anybody yet to like run that. And for me, that was, I think, the most interesting sort of opportunity that I could have had, because like it was, don't get me wrong, it was really, really interesting and meaningful to work with those other organizations and see what they were doing. But I still had that thing in the back of my head of when I was studying, like I have these ideas and I want to put them to practice.
Linking education with skateboarding, yeah.
Exactly. And this presented that opportunity that it was in a school setting, so it was a little bit more formal. They were looking for an educational program with skateboarding. And yeah, most of it was already set up for, at least for my ideas and for the project as well. So it was, I think, really a good match. So after the month at Skatepel, I flew out to Peru, and then that's when I started working with Concrete Jungle Foundation.
Okay, so you were based in Peru, in Trujillo, and you were there for how long?
So at the start, that was quite just unknown, let's say. I really just wanted to take the time to put my efforts in it, especially since after the first few months, I saw that this is really the best setup that I could hope for. Like everything that I could want is here. Like it's inside of the school, and there's like a structure. I know that I have these and these kids on specific days and specific times, and in the weekends I could open up the school to have like the kids from the community to come and skate and do some events and activities and stuff. So I really wanted to take the time to make it right, and especially also since sort of those ideas for my studies, like when I was in Peru, it really started to form more into creating a curriculum around teaching skateboarding and how can I have like a sort of a responsible way to teach these classes. Because I felt, I guess, some responsibility there too, because it was part of the school curriculum. Like the kids could choose either normal physical education or they could choose skateboarding.
Okay, wow, good choice.
Yeah.
I know which one I go for.
Yeah, and especially that first year, there was so much excitement around it, and there were so many kids involved that it was that was really really cool. And in the end, that ended up being 1 year. I was there for 1 year developing the curriculum. Towards the end, I sort of had built what is now, or at least the foundation of what is now the Eduscape Program, our skateboarding youth program that we run. And over that period of a year, I also had quite a few local volunteers that were very involved, local skaters that were very involved in the program and looking to handing it over. And that was also, I guess, a big thing with that project, because I had $0 budget for the year. Like it was all just see how you can make it happen. And then like when we got to that point of like, it's sort of an established thing, we have like something created, like how are we going to keep that going? And I didn't really see a way to keep that going without being able to pay somebody to do that. But then luckily the organization that we worked with then, Skip, supporting kids in Peru, they really saw the value of what we were doing at the school. So we managed to discuss with them, and one of the local skateboarders, Leila, she took over as the...
Garboza.
Yes.
She's now
Legend.
one of your teachers, no?
Yeah, at the moment, no.
With you.
She's not working with us anymore. She has found her own trajectory.
She has
to,
been.
She
Yeah.
has been
Yeah,
working.
which is
Yeah.
amazing.
After that, she's been working with us
She
for a long
studied
time.
psychology as well, right? And she has a lot in pastoral care, things like this. And she also
Exactly.
does the best karaoke version of a Gasolina I've
Yeah.
ever seen in my life. Seriously, that's pushing borders. One of the few memories
Oh.
I still have from that experience was watching her just kill it at
Yeah.
karaoke. It was incredible.
Yeah, yeah, she's a wonderful person, and yeah, like you said, it lined up so well. She just finished her psychology studies, and like she fully understood what was the sort of purpose or the aim of the project. And I mean, she
Yeah.
had been involved for a while, so that was quite an easy handover to her. And then after I left, she kept the project running for about a year until. Well, that's a whole other story. At some point, the school had to get renovated, and they
Mhm.
bulldozed everything down, including the skate park. So then
Wow.
we lost the skate park for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Me-
CGF Peru still going strong. We have
Yeah,
two new
yeah.
skate parks in the meantime, but maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
for later
yeah.
in the
We'll
conversation.
get there
Yeah.
for sure. And like, I mean, that's a big difference. You know, Utrecht to Peru, and you're there for a year. I mean, did you miss home? What's going on for you at that time? You know, I've heard stories that you've got a pretty intense work ethic. Like you're really on it with work.
Yeah, I don't know if you call it work ethic or if you call it passion. Like I was just so immersed
play.
in what I was doing there that I didn't really miss home
Yeah.
too much. Like I was just so stoked on that, because I had a little bit my doubts before that, but I was so stoked that in Peru, like everything was just playing out exactly how I could imagine it. And it was such a, you know, it was a dream come to life, and see
Yeah.
like what sort of outcome you had with that, with like the weekends where all the kids came, and there's more and more local skateboarders getting involved, and really this community being created around this space. That it was just very, very gratifying work. But it was also very intense. I think
Yeah.
after that year I was quite burned out, and it was
Drained,
good
yeah.
that it sort of had that step over to Leila taking over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who is the rest of the CGF team? Let's quickly run through the kind of key players and how that organization is structured.
All right. So we have Clement Taquet. Clement is the executive director. He's sort of in charge of the finances, but also just the whole organization in general. He does also all our graphic design. Very, very a key part in the organization, I would say. He's one of the founders. Then we have Troy Björkman from Finland. Troy is in charge of development. He does a lot with like outreach to different organizations for support for our work. Merchandise he does together with Patrick Rijns, who is from the Netherlands. Then we have, who else do we have? We have Johannes Wimmeder from Austria. He volunteered in Peru in 2020 for 6 months after sort of everything fell down, and to reconstruct it. And he is still on board in like just coordinating the local team. Like the local team at the moment, they're mostly running everything themselves, but just things with financial organization or just general organization, if there are any issues, Johannes is on that. Then we have Tom Critchley from the UK. Tom does research for CGF and also grant applications. He was in Jamaica last year doing a research on the Eduscape Program, like sort of a pre and post measurement of the kids that are involved, and what kind of differences do you see after the kids have been involved in the program for a season. Don't want to leave anybody out. We have our board of directors, Harry Gerard, who I mentioned earlier. He is on the board. Then we have Lisa Jacob on our board, our chairwoman, and Bob Zevenbergen from the Netherlands. Am I missing somebody?
You'll soon have Arthur.
We'll soon have Arthur. Arthur has also been involved for a while with the Concrete Jungle Foundation. He also volunteered in Peru, and he'll be managing the Morocco project the first year. Very true. And then, of course, we have our local teams. In Jamaica, we have our project manager, Blake Burnett, who manages everything on the ground.
Yeah.
And in Peru, we have Arisa Moreno, who manages everything on the ground.
Awesome. We've spoken to her. There's a bunch of familiar names there, actually.
Really?
Just say, yeah. Well, I recently interviewed Bob and his brother Gijs
Oh, nice.
for
Great.
for this piece. Skate Park Builder reacts to the Jamaica video with Jago Stock, who I also interviewed earlier today, and he says hey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and Alyssa, we interviewed Arissa.
Mm-hmm.
We interviewed recently as well. Put out a piece with her. Yeah, it's nice to hear. You know, the world is compact. Everyone's kind of.
It's a real community.
It's amazing. It's a real community. I mean, you know, let's talk a little bit about the Eduscape program because it's really close to your heart. I can tell because of this link between education and skateboarding. Like, why isn't building skate parks enough?
Why isn't building skate parks enough?
Why can't you just go there, build a skate park, and leave?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
It's a good question because I know it can work too. Like there are some examples out there of people that built a skate park somewhere and it works, but especially in the places where we built, there are not really the resources available for example, as simple as somebody having a skateboard, which is already quite a big issue, I guess. And I think besides that there is just so much more of a value that skateboarding and the way that skateboarding and its community can bring. Like, I guess that's also a little bit of a bridge to the Eduscape program. The whole program is sort of based on not just learning skateboarding tricks or specific things in skateboarding, but much more on what sort of values are integrated in skateboarding. What can you take out of it, and that goes from perseverance to courage, to self-confidence, creativity, encouraging each other. Like, there's so many little things I think in skateboarding that are so valuable, not just in skateboarding but in life in general, and that you can take out of it in the rest of your life. So that's really how it, I guess, started with the Eduscape program and sort of trying to add more values, or I don't know if it's adding, it's just like appealing to these things that are already a part of skateboarding. And that's started to expand when we started to expand as an organization too, with much more like community activities and just a whole bunch of things that are organized. Like, there's so many things that link to skateboarding that you can attach to a skate park, and different workshop, like art workshops or music workshop, or like there's so many easy things to link to skateboarding that can make a skate park not just a place where you skate, but a place that is the home of a community where people can come together, where people can learn, where people can express themselves, where people can develop themselves. And that is really the sort of vision, I guess, that we try to pursue with the skate parks that we built, and why we don't just build them and leave them.
And skateboarding's always had a culture of like, whether it's the industry or the culture around skateboarding, of music, of art, of cool t-shirts, you know what I mean? Whether it's screen printing or building ramps, things like this, right? And what sort of key takeaways do you think skateboarding itself teaches young people?
I really think that the biggest one, I mean, we focus on that in our programming as well, but also what you just see what you see happening at our projects, that people find belonging. That we see a lot of kids come in that, they're not very, I don't know how to say that, socialized. Like, you just see that they have a lot of like behavioral issues, and as soon as they come into the skate park and like find somewhere where they can like see people on a regular basis and connect with people, that they feel somewhere at home. And I think that's a super important thing that skateboarding can offer. And besides that, also to sort of be yourself and explore yourself. Like, there's so much freedom in skateboarding, and that's also, like, it's the whole idea of like giving skate lessons or organizing things around skateboarding is not to confine it, but just to tap into these things that are there. And I see that happening with a lot of the kids that come to our projects too, that they find something that is a lot more free and out of the box, and where they can just do what they want to do. And I think that's a really valuable thing to provide as well to people if they haven't experienced that. And of course, I think the third one maybe there is being able to build your competence in, a range of different things. It started with us with just like through skateboarding, like how not just like getting better at skateboarding, but being aware of like how do you get better at something. And then after that, what we do now, being able to provide a lot more different opportunities and sort of enrichment activities for the kids to explore, like what do I want or what interests me, or just different ways to develop yourself. I guess that's
So,
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I know within the Eduscape framework, you also dig deeper into several life skills. And if I'm not mistaken, there was 11 life skills.
very good. Yes.
And you run programs for 12 weeks. So there is 1 week for each life skills. Could you maybe go deeper into which life skills you actually teach through the program? And do you see any impact on the kids throughout those 3 months already regarding those life skills?
Yeah. We started with like the season format because we wanted to have just like a circular thing that we can repeat a few times a year. And it's like you said, 11 weeks. Every week focuses on a different life skill, and the last week is where we have a big event to sort of close the season and celebrate what has been achieved, I guess, over the season. And then regarding the life skills, so the life skills that we have in the program, some of them are focused on like personal competence, some of them are more focused on social skills. So for the personal competence, when we start with a positive mental attitude, usually when we start a skate lesson, the thing you hear the most of like, I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. So the first lesson we start off with like, everybody's going to have a positive mental attitude. We're going to try at least everything that the teacher says today. And I think just that thing of like the first lesson, you already see so much difference in that, some kids, they don't try and then they sort of fall out, but now they have their mindset of like, okay, I'm going to give it a try at least. And then it's already a lot easier to keep them engaged.
Like me on Tuesday during my first skate session.
oh yeah, that's true.
Then on top, we try to build on top of the skills. We have self-confidence, where like the kids, that's the third lesson. Kids have built a few skills, and then it's about like how do you sort of take that forward. So if you know how to ride down a little bank, like you were trying on Tuesday, if you feel okay with that, we try to build up that sort of skill to a more difficult challenge. So something that they already have, and build it up to something a little bit more challenging. And then that's the whole point of that lesson. You need to have confidence in yourself that you can do it, because you know you can do it. You just need to do it. You want me to go through all the 11 ones?
A general one, a general idea of the different, life skills that you teach through the program. Because I think the first time I read about it, I really felt like, okay, this makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
But
Nice.
yeah,
That's good to know.
self-confidence, I guess
We have
perseverance,
perseverance, resilience. We have a class that is just focused on learning how to fall and
it's
falling and
important.
getting back up. All these different things that have just a link somehow to skating. Yeah.
Super cool. And because now, so the Eduscape program has been tried, or at least implemented, I would say, not even tried, because I think there has been real impact that you have seen throughout the different places and locations that you have implemented in. And you also start working on the Eduscape program with other organizations. How does that feel to actually see? Because it's also an educational program that I know you've personally been very involved in designing, right? How is that going with developing it with, or not developing it, but to seeing other organizations using it and implementing it?
But that is the point, to develop it with other organizations.
Yes, actually, yes, it is the point.
Yeah, and like you said, like it's been mostly me that has been designing it, and I mean, I have certain ideas on how to do certain things, and something that I noticed with even the local skate teachers in our teams, that they often had some ideas of like how to approach something differently, or a different sort of activity to do with the kids that might connect really well with the theme of the week. And I guess the whole idea behind like opening it up more to different organizations is to see, well, first of all, like how does this sort of way of work in a different context, because we've only tried it in our context, and we know that it already works a little bit different in Peru than in Jamaica, for example. But also very much like how we started to develop this thing together with all these different people and try to come to a more and more legit sort of package of like what is the best way or the best activities that you can do to teach skateboarding in a fun and also like a pedagogically responsible way.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, that's you said it's slightly different in Peru from Jamaica. How many locations is it now in place in, and how many of those locations have you yourself lived in now?
I've lived in Peru and Jamaica, which
Mhm.
are the two projects that still work with Eduscape up until this day. Then in Angola, the skate park that we built there, we had one season that ran. In Vienna, Skateboard Club Vienna, like also a social skate project. They've been working with it with different kids from migrant backgrounds and like introducing them to different parts of the city through skateboarding. In Greece, Free Movement Skateboarding has been working with it the past
Shout out.
season.
Mm.
Shout out to Free Movement. Shout out to Will. So yeah, I guess 5 locations now, and
Amazing.
we're trying to see this year if we can expand that to about 10.
And how
Wow.
much adaptation do you have to do for the program? I know Will mentioned that there's, because of the nature of their work, there's quite a lot of adaptation. You can't necessarily follow the syllabus through class by class. It needs to be a bit more standalone. Like, are you seeing that these adaptations are massively changing Eduscape, or is it something which kind of holds true in many different forms?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been changing Eduscape in a good way. Like I think also, like what we said before, like I've been so focused on it that it's a bit of a relief to see like a perspective from outside of my viewpoint on the program and how it can work. And that was one of the things that came up with Will, but also with Johannes in Vienna, that it was much more easy way for them to work with the program, to have it more flexible than a fixed, like this is sort of the steps that you follow, but that they were discussing with their teachers, like sort of picking and choosing, like, oh, let's focus on this skill this week with the kids. And I think that was a really interesting sort of finding, and I think it's also way more exciting, like if you get something like this, if you're a skate organization and you know that you can sort of pick and choose what connects to, because you know your kids better than I do or than we do, and what would connect with them or what might be a good sort of lesson to cover with them. And besides that, another thing that came forward, that it was a really good idea to try to start creating a database of like different activities that work well with different lessons, because like now it's still like a PDF per lesson with some description of like what is the lesson about and some ideas on how to do it. But what both of those outside organizations mentioned was like it would be so nice to just have like a folder, for example, with some ideas of activities that have been executed and that have worked, so that not every teacher has to sort of reinvent the wheel, but can draw inspiration from what has happened before and what has worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. And like maybe we can talk a little bit about Jamaica, because I realize, you know, it's a project which the skate room was also involved in, and well, not sure when this episode will go out, but around the time we're actually recording this is around the time that the Freedom to Flourish documentary by Asdonck is being put out, which sort of tracks it's almost like a follow-on from The Wave, the documentary before it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can give us a little bit of a sense of, you know, what was Bull Bay and this area of Jamaica like prior to, how did the project come around, and what's the community there like now? I mean, that's a big story. So so we can also see how far you get.
Yeah, it's a big question. So we got into this project actually quite late. Like it was something that had been on the table for years and years and years before we knew about that something was going on with skateboarding in Jamaica.
Okay.
And
what year was this, when it was kind of when you were brought on?
That was the start of 2019 that we got brought on, and then we constructed it start of 2020.
In the middle of COVID.
Yeah, I was going to say
middle of COVID.
something's coming.
March 2020.
Yeah, that was hectic.
Yeah.
But before that we got involved, I think they had at least 5 to 10 years that there was a skate community there, and that they were like actively looking or trying to find a way to get a skate park there. But there was no way that the local government was able to provide something like that.
And this gnarly DIY spot, right? This
in a gully, like
gully.
It is a gully. It's just like a place where if it's like rains very hard, like a lot of water comes
just
from the
floods
mountains.
through it.
Yeah, and then it's
God.
big cleanup day after that.
Wow.
Yeah, but they made it work. And the year before we built, we visited Jamaica twice to meet the community, meet the skaters, meet just everything around the project, all the people that were involved up until that point that were advocating on trying to make it happen. And they already got a few big local foundations on board that had committed a certain amount of money, but it wasn't enough to make the project happen. And then when we got on board through the support of the skate room, we were able to sort of fill the gap of what was needed to get the project going. And then, of course, right before that we went there, we had somebody that was supposed to talk with the local community that where the skate park was supposed to be, but apparently he hadn't. So then I think it was 2 months before the project happened. All of a sudden we didn't have a piece of land, which was the most stressful period of our lives, I think. But then I think actually that worked out way better in the end, because it ended up being that right in the community where the surfers were that started skateboarding, that there was a piece of land next to the football club. And I mean, it was way more accessible for everybody there.
It's already kids hanging out there, and
exactly, it was already a bit of a youth hangout spot. So it was it was perfect that could be fixed in those 2 months before the build.
And maybe can you, because I think it was very brave and actually unrealistic or unrealistic at the time when we were all in lockdown in Europe, at least, or mostly around the world. And you guys were building a skate park. I remember it felt so unrealistic. How was that? Like, there were challenges for sure, but was there anything where you thought we're not going to make it? Or, it was quite a challenge. Everyone was in lockdown, really.
Yeah, I think we were really in our own little bubble, because like we heard what was happening around the world. But I think at that point we were also at this point of like we had, like right before the build, that point of like we almost lost it and sort of like this is the end of everything. And then we were there and we had started building. So I think everybody of CGF was just like, well, it's going to happen no matter what now. Like we're here, we made it. And it was of course super scary that a lot of the builders, like they flew back home halfway through.
I heard parents were calling them
that.
up and being like, come home now, I've booked you a ticket.
Yeah.
Otherwise you may be there for months, years.
Yeah, there was so much uncertainty around the pandemic. Like nobody really knew what it was meaning. So like when you had that call of like that certain embassies were flying planes to home countries, a lot of people were just like, well, I'm super sorry. And of course we don't blame them for any of that.
No, of course.
But I have to go back home.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the end, that's it just led to a few extra weeks of build. And I mean, we had the time because we weren't sure if we were, or when we were able to leave too.
I mean, Bob Zevenberger was telling me that he got that call and decided to stick around. But honestly, it could have been forever, and that maybe the locals were also getting a little bit like nervous as well around the build and around all these things. Like, how was the process like, and the relationships forming? Was there any tension rising, or was it still cool?
I think tensions were definitely rose because at the start when the pandemic just happened and like the, how do you call that, patient zero was in Bull Bay, the area where we were living. So Bull Bay was just quarantined of the rest of Jamaica, and we need to get concrete trucks in to build. So at first we didn't know if we could get trucks in to keep the build going, but then luckily that could still happen. But the whole building process, like we initially started the Planting Seeds Apprenticeship Program in Jamaica there, where we try to involve the locals and offer them a paid apprenticeship to learn like the whole steps of how do you build a skate park from A to Z. But with all that hecticness around the build, halfway through it was just like we have to somehow see how we can manage to finish this. And I guess for some of them it was a lot more chaotic, like not the sort of organized kind of program that we wanted to teach, but it also put a lot more sort of responsibility on them, and some of them really took that, you know, with both hands, which was great to see that they like we want to have this done. And I mean for all of them, it was, for all of the locals, it was like that, like they had been let down so many times in the past with somebody that said that they would come to build a skate park and it didn't happen, and now it was happening and they were involved and they just wanted to have it done.
Wow.
So yeah, it was definitely more tense, but everybody just
brought you
pushed
closer
through.
together as well, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, definitely also with like some people had some serious mental health issues during that time, because it was
stressful.
super stressful. Nobody knew what was going on, if they could go home, like what was going to happen. So yeah, it was
we
quite
were stressed at home, so I cannot imagine if you're stressed in a country that's not yours and you don't know if you're gonna go back home or And then the Eduscape program started there, right?
But that wasn't until months later, because first everything was just locked down, everything was closed down, and actually that was a very pleasant thing. Like it was like the universe gave me and the people that were there like a few sort of weeks in just like a nice Jamaica vacation, because we couldn't do anything, we couldn't start anything up. We had finished the park, so it just it ended up just being that we could hang out. That is what I meant earlier also with that we were in our little bubble. Like during those weeks when we finished the construction, we would just go surf in the morning, skate in the afternoon, make music in the evenings. Like it was such a weird little dream, while knowing that everybody else was like locked in their houses and everything everywhere was just shut down. It was super surreal. Surreal is the right word to describe it.
And even with lockdown, I guess the skate park was still, was it closed for a while, or how was it? How was the skate park built? How was the local community responding to that? Because you've seen the skate scene was already existing there, but you probably have seen the development of that, and how did that all happen, you know?
It was actually, I was quite surprised by, like, in August, we had everything finished with that. We had the right people, that we hired the right local people for the right positions, and that we started running programming and stuff. And it was really incredible to see what the skate park attracted, because you didn't really have public spaces. You don't really have a lot of public parks in Jamaica in general, or playgrounds or anything like that. So it was quite a new thing for a lot of people there too. Like, so at the start I wasn't sure, like, what are we going to attract? Like, how am I going to find enough kids in the community to engage in programming? Are they gonna come or not? But then when we started, like, it was not just the kids, but it was the whole community that was just hanging out in the seat stands and looking at everything that was going on. And it was just I think it was very embraced in the community. And I think that also had to do with this whole pandemic thing, that everybody was quite scared. And then in August, when the numbers went down and everything was a little bit more relaxed, that it was super nice that there was a place where everybody could come together.
And the first season then started after that of Eduscape. Sorry, the first season of Eduscape started. How was that? How did that all start? Like, was there enough kids or enough spaces at the Eduscape program for all the kids that wanted to join? Or how did that all go?
I think like in the first months when it was still like closed. I mean, it wasn't really closed because it was an open public space, so we could just go skate there. But there were a lot of people that were already like looking and like, what is this, and sort of getting an idea of it. So by the time that we started, it was super easy to fill the registration list. I think we started with 119 kids the first season, and it was full on just everyday lessons to try to accommodate everybody. I guess that's also, you know, the sort of hype that you have with something new. Like, there were just so many people that were interested and wanted to be involved in some way.
So cool. And then you also started a home working program in Jamaica, no?
Yeah, but that didn't start till later. We started with that in 2021. and that was actually a direct response to what we saw happening in 2020. Because as soon as the pandemic hit, the government decided that schooling in Jamaica was going to happen online. But a lot of the kids in our community, they didn't have a device or they didn't have internet connection, so we saw them basically at the skate park the whole day. And yeah, we didn't really know like are things going to end or what is going to happen. But at the end of 2020, when the kids were like without school for almost a year, I really felt like that pressure of like, I don't want the skate park to be like a sort of a distraction from that part, but be able to sort of support them in
empower them.
in that too. And like clearly nothing is happening. So I started talking with a few people in the community that I knew that had been teaching. And I talked with one of our funders from Jamaica about starting up a homework program. So then at the start of 2021, all our skate classes that we had during the weekdays, normally, they were replaced by homework classes. So 4 days a week, I think we started. A teacher would come in at the skate park, organize basically school, because nobody had homework, because nobody was going to school. And it was really scary at the start. I wasn't quite sure like how the kids are going to react to that, because like it was all fun and games, and you know they can come to the skate park. I mean, we still were organizing there was still some structure, but this was quite a different thing of like sitting
homework at the skate park.
Sitting in the youth center for
Just
3 hours,
get away from that,
instead of like going out and skate. But it was I think mostly due to the teachers and them being so able to connect well with the kids, that it was without any resistance. Like at the start we didn't how do you say that, force the kids or anything to join the homework program. It was just there,
volunteer.
But the classes were filled every day, and it's that keeps going until now. Since the start of this year, kids are going back to school. Some still not, but most of the kids are back in school, which is great. But we still do the homework classes during the weeks. So it was, also a little bit of like, we started with Eduscape and like fully focusing on that, and then that need came up, and a lot of the programming in the skate park changed due to that.
I think
situation.
It's amazing, because it's really a proof that you're being very agile depending on where you work, and that you also adapt to the local needs. And ultimately, that's also what, or at least the vision I have of an NGO, is to really be able to respond to the local needs, and not just being, applying what you do everywhere, and that you can adapt. So I think it's really, really amazing to be so agile and develop further programs depending on your context and your community. So really amazing.
Yeah, you can't do anything yourself, and there was so much support from the community for things like that it makes it a lot easier to make that happen as well,
Yeah. If it's welcomed by the community and needed, then they will also be on board to focus on that and to implement it. Yeah, that's really cool. And then maybe we can touch upon the upcoming project, because the Skate Room and Concrete Jungle Foundation have been, we've been collaborating together with Centre Fier et Fort, at least discussing for more than a year now, for a project, kind of a very special project, and the skate park in a youth center. I think we can name that a youth center or shelter, maybe. In Tamslot in Morocco, in an industrial kind of area of very close to Marrakesh, and I wanted to know if you could share maybe a bit more about your vision of the impact that we will be able to generate together in Tamslot, and for the kids of the Centre Fier et Fort, but also of the local community. And sorry. How will Eduscape, I mean, you have the Eduscape program that is already defined, but it will also be implemented there. You can tell us a bit more about that project.
Yeah, what I really, really like about this project, like, we always try to work together with partners on the ground when we have a project, and try to reach out to youth shelters to try to reach those kids that would be most in need of more recreational activities and more maybe also alternative educational opportunities. And I really like that here it is like bringing it to that.
Yeah.
and besides that, I really like. I haven't been. You've been there.
Yeah, it's true.
But from what I understood from all the information that got passed around is that the center, they already have a wide range of different things that they do with the kids and a lot of different educational workshops and activities. And when I spoke with Arthur, the person who will be in charge there of the skate park, that's, you know, the skate park will also be very integrated in the rest of the center. Like he will be in the meetings with the teachers, and I really like in that way that it becomes part of the center. And yeah, I think there's a lot of different sort of activities that are already happening there that the skate park can be like a complement to. And yeah, also besides that, hopefully, I mean, after our first discussions, like we just want to start with reaching the kids of the shelter, but hopefully at some point also opening up more to the kids from the community, and yeah, be able to have a bigger reach with the skate park.
Yeah, and it's definitely been in a way, I guess, I mean, for CGF, it's been a different angle because, as you said, usually you would mostly work with local partners, but that are already involved in skateboarding, right? This is how you've worked mostly until now? No, maybe not in the schools in Trujillo.
Yeah, not always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, and for the skate room, it's been very exciting also to be able to identify, as you said, a place where there is already kind of a support of empowerment for kids, and be able to say, hey, actually, we could bring skateboarding to you. And I think that was very, very exciting for the skate room to be part of this, of this process and working with you on this project. We're very excited.
Yeah.
And it's finally happening.
Yeah, super excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of these projects are an opportunity for, as we said earlier, like the tight-knit community of social skate and, increased collaborations. You've worked with other partners of the skate room, like Free Movement, who we've already mentioned. You were recently on a 1-week tour of the UK?
Yeah.
And as you said, you've been collaborating with them on developing the Concrete Jungle Foundation. Like, how do these collaborations, and how do you see the social skate movement right now? Like, what do you see happening as more and more projects emerge and begin to kind of collaborate? Like, where is this heading? What sort of world is this creating, and how is this changing skateboarding in the eyes of the mainstream, I suppose?
I think where we left off is maybe a good point to pick that up, because finding strong partners has always been a crucial part of for us to be able to do our work. And I think like if you sort of take that to a bigger scale, like what we're starting to do with the Free Movement and hopefully with other organizations this year, like it's creating something bigger than yourself, right? And I mean, I think that's also such a part of skateboarding. Like you can skate by yourself, but you can create so much more with the whole community of skaters, and there's so many beautiful things that can come out of that. So I very much see that same sort of movement or mentality, however you want to call it, in this field of work too. Like there's not, I mean, it's starting to come up more and more and more, but in the end, like you said, it's quite a small world. Like we know most of the people that are involved in this sort of work, and I feel like the first, at least for most of us, first few years, it was just battling to try to find our way of working and be able to make ourselves stable. But like with the point where most of us are now, like I think it's a great opportunity to start to work together more, build more things together, and like grow this thing the same way that skateboarders have grown beyond just skateboarding. Yeah.
And what would you say, you said that the initial challenge of the social skate projects is more maybe individual, of how do we keep our actual project running, and how do we get it off the ground, but maybe more collectively, what do you think is the next big challenge for social skateboarding? Like what do you think people face the most now?
From the organizations that I've been in touch with, like for example, last week here it was really nice to speak with Cas from Seven Hills and Will from Free
Shout
Movement.
out.
Not a shout out. It's like, where's your sort of ceiling?
Mhm.
And we talked about this in a way of like what kind of opportunities, like we can offer enough opportunities within our structure, but not very much beyond that. And that's something that we were discussing also this week of like, well, how would we be able to provide more opportunities to these people that we've, like been working with for so long, that we see would greatly benefit from more opportunities through the work. How can we create a more global network to sort of raise that ceiling and be able to provide more for them? Because in the end, I mean, like for example, Will and me, like we're able to travel to these different places and meet these different people and different organizations and be able to benefit from that greatly. But of course, we would love to be able to provide that for the people that we work with on the ground too. You have in so many of the, like there's so many examples of kids that start as students in our projects and then move up to instructors and take on more responsibilities. And I really hope that the social skate movement is going to be a way for people to explore more opportunities through that.
Well, two examples of that maybe being, first of all, Yanis from Free Movement, who was able to get a passport and come on the Beyond Skateboarding tour with you guys last week. And then also even Layla, who at Pushing Borders was able to travel from Peru to be present, and which I can't remember if she was on a panel or whether she was just involved in a lot of the events. But yeah, the ability to do these exchanges and to have to empower these people to go and make their own connections and network and to build their careers in that way, right?
Exactly. Like I think Layla is such a good example of that, in the sense of that trip to Pushing Borders Malmo opened up so many doors for her, and like the trajectory that I was talking about earlier for her, like she's now on her way to study in Spain, and she's got pretty much everything set out for that, and
So
it's
good.
happening, and it's incredible that was able to happen.
Yeah.
It really changes lives.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah. So what, for you personally, inspires you to keep working each day and potentially also sometimes at weekends? So the rumors go.
Definitely always weekends.
Always weekends. I think Will asked you, why don't you take the weekends off? I was like, no, it's too much of a luxury. Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, I guess it came down to something like that.
Love it.
I think really that the output, like, of course, I have to be honest, I'm not always motivated, and there's definitely been periods where I was just like, I need to drop this, like it's just taking too much out of me. But just the examples of like seeing what comes back out of what you put in, as long as that sort of balance is good, then that's a great motivation to keep going. I think a big example of that for me was also last year when we went to Peru to build 2 new skate parks. And I mean, I'd been visiting for a week or a few weeks before that, but it's been a long time that I was like very much involved on the ground with what was happening that first year. And like coming back, that was 4 years later, and seeing how the local team is handling everything themselves and just managing and just completely like having it down, like they're doing it, they know what they're doing, they know what the next steps are, and that make me so incredibly proud. And like that's what you do it for, like be able to see that, and how many kids they're able to impact now through what they're doing, completely on their own efforts. It's that is the motivation.
Amazing. Clara, you want to see us out?
Yeah. Sorry?
You want to see us out?
Yeah, we have a last question to end the podcast. It's a bit of a classic one, but it's an important one. So where would you like to see CGF in 5 years from now?
Oof. I always find it a very difficult question for some reason. Sometimes it's very hard to look ahead, especially when what is going on now.
Mars might need skate parks soon.
I would love to be able to, that CGF in 5 years has the sort of the comfort to be able to provide the support to different communities that we get in touch with, that they need, and also to be able to really like build upon and expand what we are already doing. I feel like within our organization, there's always sort of this discussion of like, do we invest more in quantity, like like we have so many emails from different communities of people that would love a skate park, but we also know like how much work is involved in that. Like, can we handle it, or do we invest more in quantity? Like, we have a few beautiful projects, they are doing incredible things, and should we expand on that? So I don't know. It's kind of hard to ideally, I would like to see both happen, of course, but I don't know if we're gonna have that luxury. But either one of those, I guess, is fine. I would prefer the social impact and quality way, because I guess that's where my work lies with CGF.
Yeah, totally get that. In a way, you're actually also with Eduscape, you can scale up your impact by doing quality and also quantity on the side. So maybe both are possible.
Yeah, that is, I guess, the big challenge, to find a way to combine
let's see in 5 years.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it. Well, where can people find you? ConcreteJungleFoundation.org?
ConcreteJungleFoundation.org.
At Concrete Jungle Foundation.
That's it, on the Facebook.
Hashtag Concrete Jungle Foundation.
Pretty much everywhere with Concrete Jungle Foundation.
I mean, it's a easy name to remember.
Yeah. And if you want to follow our specific projects, they're CGF_Jamaica or CGF_
Peru. Okay, nice one. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Tim, for joining us. Thank you to everyone at CGF and everyone who supported it along the way. And of course, from our side, thanks to all of our artist partners, because it's those collaborations which allow us to fund projects like yours. Thank you to everyone who, watches and collects and, is part of the skate room story. Our retailers, partners, our audience, everyone. And that's it.
Thank you so much
you.
for your support. Like, half of our work would not have been possible without it. So very, very massive thank you for that. And thanks for having me here.
Pleasure.
Tonight.
Let's get that
We're
5
very
year,
proud
5
to be
years
supporting
more.
you.
Yeah, sick. Okay. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah,
There we go.
welcome.